A very warm welcome to everyone. So thank you for joining engagement session by the School of Chemistry, Chemical Engineering and Biotechnology, CCEB, for the course of Bioengineering, EIE, as well as Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering, CBE. So our event will begin shortly. Meanwhile, you can scan the QR code to join our CCEB Linktree and to find out more on our future event. Please be reminded that these sessions will be recorded. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So once again, welcome to the engagement sessions for the School of Chemistry, Chemical Engineering and Biotechnology. So I'm Li Qing. Together with me, Xing Ni.
Hi everyone, I'm Xing Ni, taking the course of Bioengineering Year 3.
We are your host for today. So this is the program for today. So shortly after this, we will have our professors sharing, followed by Q&A interactions. So let me first introduce our Professor Raymond Lau. He will be sharing on the relevance of the CCEB educations in the new sustainable bioeconomy. Prof. Raymond, please.
Thank you. So just let me share my screen. Okay, so so I'm going to share about the relevance of a CCEB education in a new sustainable bioeconomy. So in particular, this sharing would be more catered towards the engineering education within CCEB. So, so I guess first is that if you're aware, actually our CCEB is a new school, which is a joint effort of merging between the previous School of Chemical and Biomedical Engineering that belongs to the College of Engineering with the Division of Chemistry and Biological Chemistry from the College of Science. So after we formed the new school, then we would have 2 engineering programs within the school, as well as a chemistry or science program in the school. So what we are seeing is that this is the university efforts to have a better integration between the science and engineering. Because in many cases, the application of engineering does require a lot of background knowledge about science. And when people are studying sciences, it would be good to know what would be the potential engineering application as well. So in the later part of the slides, I'm going to share a little more on how our education can help you to secure your jobs in the future. But before that, just in case if you are not very sure about what are the programs that we have to offer, so I am going to talk about those. So in NTU, there are many different options in terms of the degree selection. So we have single degree program, we have second major, we have double degree program, we have premier scholars program, as well as we have many different choices of minors and specializations. So single degree program, essentially it's referring to a like the name suggests, a single degree. So you will choose among one of these 3 degree programs to register in. For second major is that if you have an additional interest that is beyond what you are studying in the single degree. So for example, for the second major, We have second major in business. We have second major in food science and technology. We also have second major with data analytics, as well as the technopreneurship. Double degree, it's somewhat similar to the second major, except that the double degree program will take 1 additional year to complete. And currently, we would only have 1 double degree program that is together with the Department of Economics. Then Premier Scholars Program would be a combination, either your single degree program plus management. So that would be the Renaissance Engineering Program. Or if you are inclined to do research, then you can combine your single degree with the C.N. Young Scholars Program. And then in that case, the focus would be more towards the research and development. So at the current state, I would say these would be the 4 main programs that you should be considering at the moment. Minors as well as specialization, you don't have to worry about it because you can actually enroll in these minor programs and specializations after you come to NTU. However, second major Premier Scholars Program and the double degree program, you will need to register, or you need to make the selection at admission. So after you join NTU, you will not be able to register this program. You can, however, not downgrade, but you can opt out of this program and join a single degree program if later on you find that the second major or the double degree is not really what you're looking for. Okay, so the 2 new second major programs, one would be on the data analytics. So it is a joint efforts between the College of Science and the College of Engineering. We do see that there is an increase in the applications of data analytics in many, many industries. So that is why we would want to have this second major program, such that engineers would be able to apply this data analytics to their main program, such that they would have a specific application of this data analytics. The entrepreneurship, it's more on the Singapore's efforts into developing more homegrown companies. And in many cases, a lot of these companies actually require engineering developments. But once you develop your products, how do you actually bring it to the market? What are the different considerations you need to have to make the business successful, to be able to make it to the products you can sell in the market? That is what you'll be learning in the entrepreneurship second major. And of course, we would have other second majors that has been around for a number of years. So second major in business, it is one of the most popular second major program that we have. Pharmaceutical engineering second major, it is mainly catered for the bioengineering program students, mostly because we do see a lot of the pharmaceutical companies setting up their facilities in Singapore to manufacture the medicines. So we will go through more on this aspect a little later. And then food science and technology would be the efforts to look at the food security. In particular, we are focusing on sensors to make sure that the food are safe to take, or maybe we'll be developing technologies that can extend the shelf life of the food, or a new technology that can allow us to process food that can be more energy efficient, or be to make them taste better. So there are a lot of considerations that we need to have when we are processing food. So this food science and technology program would be essentially catered to that. And I mentioned about the minors. So there are many minors programs that are available. So I'm not going to go through the each of them in details, but this is just a snapshot on what is available. And along the way, NTU would also be developing new minors, so you will be able to do a selections at a later time. Okay, so enough about the programs that we have to offer. But then I guess what you will be concerning is, okay, we are in this program, then how is it related to the future job search or what you'll be doing when you're at work? So let's look at some statistics. So for bioengineering, the top 5 industry sectors that our graduates from last year joining would be the pharmaceutical and biological product manufacturing. And then the job titles, there are a number of job titles. So you can take a look at it and see that we have quite a variety of job titles. So essentially, the jobs that they would be doing, even if it is from the same industry sector, can be very different. So I do encourage you to at least take a little look at what would be the job functions, what would be the roles of each of these job titles. Then that can give you a sense of, is that going to be something that you're interested in? So our employment rates, it's fairly encouraging. It's over 90%. And then the mean salary is $3,600 or so. So it's pretty decent salary. I'm not going to worry too much about the small differences between the different engineering schools. And 98% of our graduates essentially will be able to secure their jobs within 4 months after graduation. A little more information that maybe, I hope it's going to be more encouraging for you, is that this is just the starting salary, but what about the progression? How much can you make after you work for a few years? So these will be an informal survey that we have conducted with our BIE graduates 3 to 5 years after graduation. So depending on what kind of job title that you are getting, so you can see that there is a certain increment in the salary that they are making. So not saying you will definitely get this, or whether it is possible for you to get anything higher, but this would give you a sense of how is it going to be like 3 to 5 years after graduation when you are doing the jobs within the disciplines. For chemical engineering, the top industry that recruit chemical engineers would be for electronic products. You may also wonder, electronics, what does chemical has to do with it? So essentially for electronic products, we are still looking at a manufacturing process, and manufacturing has a lot to do with quality control, a lot to do with the purification, and that is within the knowledge or skill sets that is being introduced in the chemical and biomolecular engineering program. And the second most popular industry that recruit our graduates would be the pharmaceuticals and biological products manufacturing. So that means this is actually the top of the BIE students and the second top for CBE students, which is why we are introducing in today's session to talk about how is the relevance actually there. So what are you going to do in the pharmaceutical industry? So similarly, you will have a good list of the job titles that you are getting as the CBE graduates. And in terms of employment, it's fairly comparable, over 90%. The mean salary, it's somewhat higher than the BIE graduates. But again, I'm not going to be too particularly concerned about the mean salary, because one of the important things that you can look at would be the potential growth. So actually 3 to 5 years down the road, the salary, if you look at, if you compare it with other engineering disciplines, is actually fairly comparable. So, and many of these actually would be quite individual. So how are you going to contribute to the organization? And that would essentially governs what kind of career progression and what kind of increment you're going to get. So again, so these would be more of an indicative number. So let's look at some other information that is probably not supplied by NTU or not supplied by Singapore. So this is some statistics that is actually shown by McKinsey and Company. So McKinsey, it's a consultancy company, which essentially would be collecting information and report what is happening all around the world. So particularly now, COVID is hitting us fairly heavily, and we would need to know how would that impact future job search. And so what about work from home? So what about the social distancing or safe distancing? So is that going to impact the future jobs? So what they have found, okay, they don't have anything that is specific for Singapore. I guess mainly because Singapore population is relatively small compared to a lot of these countries that are reported here. But we can see a certain trends based on what they have reported. So the darker the blue color, that means the McKinsey's is looking at it as it's going to have more potentials in the growth in terms of employment. And then if it is towards the black color, that means it's on a decline. So if you are considering an engineering education or science education, that's actually something that is very good. So if you look at it, health is something that is going to grow all across the world. India is slightly lower, but it's still in the growth range. STEM, of course, it's going to be, and then health as well. So if you're considering biomedical engineering or chemical engineering, so you are actually in this category. So that is something that is encouraging. And look at it, their expectation is this is going to be up until 2030. So that means you don't have to worry about, say, when you graduate 4 to 6 years down the road, are there going to be jobs for you? So if it is in a growing market, that means job is going to be available. So we talk about the relevance of education in the bioeconomy. So of course, I'm going to use the pharmaceutical industry as an example. So what is it that you're going to do as an engineer in a pharmaceutical company? I'm not going to go a lot into details on this graph. So just very briefly, so when we're talking about drugs, pharmaceutical medicines, right? So if we're talking about drugs, essentially there are 3 ways of producing drugs. One is we would be using chemical reactions. Then we would perform the reactions and we will get the drugs that we need. Second, it can be that the drugs are actually living organisms. So in that case, we would need these living organisms to do the culturing, and then we allow them to make the drug. So for example, if we are looking at vaccines, vaccines are living organisms. So we can't perform chemical reactions to get vaccines. So in this case, we'll be using the growth of microorganisms to generate our the drug, which is actually called the pharmaceutically active substances or active pharmaceutical ingredients. Then the third category of drugs would be something that we cannot make. So we can't do it chemically, we can't do it biologically. So in this case, we would have to source these materials from nature. So from nature, it can be from plants, it can be from animal. Then we would be extracting these useful substances from either the plant cells or the animal cells. Again, these are the 3 main paths for the drugs manufacturing to get this, but it doesn't stop there. So what the engineer's task essentially is, once the active pharmaceutical ingredients are produced, then how are we going to introduce them and how are we going to bring it to the customers? So in terms of drugs, we can have pills, we can have droplets, we can have inhaling powders. So we have many different forms, or even as paste. So depending on what kind of products we are going to produce, then we have to go through a number of processes. So essentially, the engineer's role would be to operate these processes to get the drugs that we can see from the market, or alternatively, they would be there to make sure the final product is of a uniform specification. So you don't want something that has high dosage in one pill and the other with very little dosage in another. So it can be of quality control, or we can develop new processes such that we can make this in a much more efficient way. So that essentially would be the role of engineers in this particular industry. So what is it that you learn in CCEB that can help you to execute these roles. So to do this, there are a lot of engineering and design principles, and it would vary from chemistry, biology, reactions, catalysts, flow patterns, so a lot of different considerations. And by the way, you're not going to learn a course on chemistry or a course on biology, a course on the reaction kinetics. So a lot of these are actually implemented into our different courses. So it would becomes like a building block. So you'll learn certain information from one course, and then you piece it up with another piece of information in another course, and that will help you execute your job. So just now I mentioned about the different types of sources of drugs that you can obtain, the chemical route, the biological route, or the nature. So now let's look at one example. If we're going to produce, let's say, COVID vaccines, okay, this is not really the exact figure for vaccine production, but essentially vaccines would be something that rely on the growth of cells. So we'll be putting the vaccines into a certain biological cells. So that means we need these cells to grow. But cells means they are living organisms. So the conditions that they grow can vary. And different, let's say, even for human, different individuals, they would prefer different type of environments that they live in. So the same thing for cells, we will need to create an environment that is suitable or in an environment that they like. So this would have to bring in information about biology. It will have to bring in information on, say, the reactor design, how to create an environment. So in that case, the bioengineering knowledge would also come in. When we grow them, then we would have to do extraction. So after the cells grows in quantity, we don't want to use the entire cell. So we only want the useful substances that is in the cell. So to do that, we need to have certain techniques to break it. In the lab, we can use small devices, or even if you can just use your rod to try to beat it up and break the cells. But when you have cells in much larger quantity, so we may not be able to just do that manually. So we need to have certain ways of doing that. So that would have to do with the equipment design as well as the equipment operation. After breaking the cells, we can extract, say, if we're interested in the proteins, then we can extract the proteins from the cells. And this extraction process would have to do with the separation, because we want to separate the proteins from the cell walls. But the cells may not be only producing one type of proteins. So if we want to have a purified products, we need to do additional purification process. So we want to separate it into different streams of environment or formulations. So in that case, we would need to have additional purification steps, and then also the packaging, and also to make it into the final products. So we have a lot of things that we wanted to do, but we can't simply just learn one of them. And in fact, not all of you will be joining this industry, and you may not be working on just one of the roles. So we would have to teach you a lot of this basic principles so that you can apply them in whatever the job role that you can do. So in terms of our curriculum, for both the bioengineering curriculum as well as the chemical engineering curriculum, we have certain common courses. So in these common courses, I would put them in this yellow box or orange box. So the basics, the math, physics, biology, which essentially would be the main thing that you will need to learn in engineering disciplines. Of course, communication, all disciplines will need to learn them. Then in second year, we will start to branch out. So in bioengineering, you learn the major specific courses, anatomy and physiology, biomechanics, bioelectronics, and then same thing for year 3. For the chemical engineering program, we learn a different sets of core courses, but we do have some common courses that are required in both disciplines. Thermodynamics, digital literacy, how you apply data, control principles, how you ensure that you can obtain the final products in these specified quality. So be it a biological products or chemical products, you still have to learn these control principles. And in year 4, then you'll be doing the final year projects. There will be differences in the final year projects that you execute in biomedical engineering compared to chemical engineering, which at this point, I probably won't go too much into details. And then this is going to be my last slide. So I mentioned about the industry, but yeah, how is it of relevance? Yes, you can be in there, but what about the demand? So this is something that I obtained from SingStat, that is a government website. So the latest data they have is for 2020. So in terms of manufacturing, Singapore actually is relying fairly heavily on manufacturing. So what I'm going to do is that this is the total manufacturing that includes all the manufacturing sectors. And the other ones are the ones that would be more relevant to bioengineering graduates as well as the chemical engineering graduates. So food and beverage, refined petroleum products, chemicals and chemical products, pharmaceutical and biological products, as well as the computer electronics and optical products, because all this essentially would be requiring graduates from bioengineering as well as the chemical engineering degree. So in terms of the manufacturing output, so essentially our manufacturing sector, it's in 2020, we are making 300 billion Singapore dollar as an output. Now, if you look at the other products that is relevant to bioengineering and chemical engineering, you add them all up, that essentially would contribute more than half of the total manufacturing outputs of Singapore. So essentially, the economic impact that you generate is huge. Now, what about the number of employees? Yes, you're creating huge impact, but what about the job availability? So the number of industries that is in the manufacturing sector, it's about 370,000. Now, this would give you a breakdown on the number of employees that you're going to need in each of these industries. So computer and electronics and optical products. So from this number, you know that they actually hire a lot of engineers. And then food and beverages also quite a lot, and then chemicals a lot as well. So that means this is going to be where the job is going to be. Now, value adds. So what is value add? Value add is when you have output, it's just the amount of money that you get from selling your products. Value add is when you make your product, you need the raw materials. So you need to buy a certain raw materials. So value add means how much value you actually generate from the raw materials that you have obtained. So that is essentially how much you sell minus how much you need to spend to buy the ingredients. So this will give you a sense on how much value add you're going to get. But what I want to draw the attention to you is that per worker or per employee in these industries, you can actually see that pharmaceutical industry essentially is generating a lot of value. You don't need a lot of employees, but the revenue that you can generate is actually quite significant. And then we have quite a lot of revenue generation from the chemical and chemical products, petroleum products, as well as the computer and electronic products as well. Now, another one that you may be interested to know is that what about the pay, the remuneration? So this one is you essentially look at how much remuneration you give to the industry divided by the number of employees. So you can actually also see that the pharmaceutical products, the chemical products, as well as the refined petroleum products. So the new remuneration actually it's fairly high. And this I'm talking about the average. So not the very top end and not the very low end as well. So this is also some of the values you can probably look up to when you get into the particular industry. And if you're interested, you can always go to this things that websites to look for comparisons with other industries. There are many other industries that is in there, but I didn't extract it because they are not as relevant to our program. So with this, I hope it will give you a better understanding in terms of how you can select the programs that you want to study in the future. So with this, I'm going to end my sharing. So I do hope I will be able to see you in CCEB later this year, if not 2 years later. Otherwise, then I guess I can answer some of the questions that you may have later on in the Q&A session.
Thank you so much, Prof. Raymond, for the sharing. So we are now move on to sharing by Professor Tan Meng Hao. So we will be sharing more on the student life, career prospect, as well as what you can expect from being a CCEB student in our school. So Prof. Tan, please.
All right, hey everyone. I'm the Associate Chair of Students in the school, and I will share more about the value of CCEB educations for the future bioeconomy and what student life is like in CCEB. So first, let me share my screen. Okay, it's a very big file. Okay, so just now you have heard quite a bit about the job prospects of what's an education in our school can bring you, and indeed I'd just like to give you a little bit more information, and some of you may be aware of these industry transformation maps that were recently released by the Ministry of Trade and Industry, and there are over 20 or so of such industry transformation maps. And some of them will include things like energy and chemicals, healthcare, and food manufacturing, which are all very relevant to our graduates. So if you look at the, some of the statistics given by EDB, right, you can see that Singapore is doing very well in industry sectors that are relevant to our school. So for example, we are one of the world's largest exporters of chemicals. 8 of the top 10 pharmaceutical companies have manufacturing facilities in Singapore, and a large percentage of some of the biotech equipment, like such as microarrays, PCR machines and mass specs are actually produced or manufactured in Singapore. So that if you were to do a scan of the news of what are some of the companies that have set up shop in Singapore, you will find that many of them actually are operating in sectors that our graduates are well trained for. So for example, in the energy and chemical space, right, we have the BASF, which is a German chemical giants, setting up plant in Tuas. You have the French energy giant Total also setting up a base in Singapore, and they have their lubricants blending plants is in Tuas, is currently the largest and the most modern in the world. And here another 2 examples for energy and chemicals, and you can see for yourself that this is a very active sector for the Singapore economy. So beyond energy and chemicals, in the MedTech space, there's also a lot of growth potential. So for example, in 2019, PerkinElmer has set up the largest lab instrument manufacturing facility in Singapore. And then even in the latest ongoing COVID pandemic, you can see a lot of innovations coming from Singapore scientists, both big companies and also startups. For example, the manufacturing of masks, of nasopharyngeal swabs, antibody treatments, so on and so forth. And this is something that was developed by our colleagues in chemistry and biological chemistry, which will also be part of CCEB, where they basically develop a breath analyzer that we breathe into a tube and it can directly tell you, in just a few minutes, whether you are infected with COVID or not. So then, the research group basically spun off a company called Silver Factory to commercialize the device. And you can see here that the breath analyzer was actually trialed in Parliament, and you can see our PMD trying out the equipment, and it was also trialed in Chem-E airport as well. So then, beyond MedTech, in the Pharma and Biotech sector, there's also a lot of buzz and activity. And just 2 years or so ago, the pharma giant GSK just set up a $130 million manufacturing facility in Singapore. And just a few weeks ago, in February, the biotech company GenScript basically launched a large manufacturing facility in Singapore to make recombinant proteins and to synthesize DNA. Okay, so this is a lot of opportunities for our graduates. And then as Prof. Raymond has already alluded to, in the vaccine manufacturing space, EDB has managed to attract some of these vaccine manufacturers to Singapore as well. So you can see that BioNTech. So many of you have taken the Pfizer BioNTech vaccines. BioNTech has decided to set up their Southeast Asia headquarters in Singapore to manufacture and distribute their mRNA vaccines. And another large vaccines manufacturing, Hillman Labs, which is a collaboration, I believe, between Merck and Wellcome Trust in the UK. And they have also decided to set up a new vaccine manufacturing facility in Singapore as well. So this is basically hope that I can give you a good sense of the buzz and the activity that's going on in all these different sectors that our graduates are poised for. And then looking forward, there's a lot of interesting challenges that we need to solve, and there's a growing push for us to move towards a sustainable and circular bioeconomy, in large part because of the many global challenges that we are facing. So for example, I'm sure many of you know that climate change is becoming a growing problem, where we have excessive CO2 released into the atmosphere. And then if you have the ice melting in the Antarctic, you can have a rise in sea levels, and low-lying countries like Singapore will potentially be in trouble. And if you look around you, you can see there's a lot of ecosystem destruction, such as deforestation. There's a lot of pollution, especially plastics in the environments. And the work population is growing by the day. So then we are facing an issue of overpopulations and growing demand for food and energy, which we are now beginning to realize that traditional methods such as animal breeding are unable to cope with all these global challenges. So then we need to come up with innovative solutions to address some of these global challenges. So I'm sure many of you would have eaten the Impossible Burger. So now we are seeing a trend that is where many animal-free products such as meatless burgers or milkless ice cream is basically coming or has already arrived on our dining table. Okay, and then in terms of the in the energy sector, fossil fuels do not last forever, and some of the big petrochemical companies are realizing that. So for example, ExxonMobil is collaborating with synthetic genomics to produce new algae strains that can, generally pave the way to a novel, low carbon fuel and a more sustainable future. And they are engineering all this algae using CRISPR gene editing technology, which was awarded the Nobel Prize in 2020. And similarly, I'm sure many of you like to eat chocolate, and chocolate comes from cacao, which is a very important global food crop. But cacao actually faces a number of currently untreatable plant diseases. So if nothing is done about it, basically it's projected that the cacao plant will go extinct by 2050. So then, Mars is now collaborating with the Innovative Genomics Institute in Berkeley to genetically engineer cacao trees so that they will be resistant to disease as well. And this is being undertaken using the CRISPR gene editing technology as well. So that's, that I can, go on and give you a lot of examples around the world of all these innovative solutions that people are coming up with to tackle global challenges. But at home here in NTU and in particular in CCEB, many of our faculty members are also at the forefront of developing some of these innovative solutions. For example, the Prof. Mary Chan and her collaborators have invented a new smart food packaging material that is biodegradable, sustainable, and can kill harmful microbes. And this packaging that you can see in the picture here is actually made from natural materials such as corn and starch, and it even has antimicrobial compounds such as thyme, which is a common herb used in cooking, and citric acid. So this is one of the solutions that can potentially reduce the use of plastics. And below here you can see another example where a group from Prof. William Chen's lab have basically transformed durian husks, which usually after you eat the durians, you just throw them away. You can actually extract materials from the husk and convert it into a bandage, some kind of a hydrogel bandage. And you can also incorporate useful compounds into the bandages as well. Okay, so this low-cost bandage is biodegradable and is also non-toxic. Okay, and it's in line with Singapore's push towards zero waste. Okay, so more examples on how CCEB faculty are actively trying to recycle or upcycle waste in our environments. So here we have another faculty member, Prof. Lee Jong-Ming, working with other faculty in NTU to recycle electronic waste, which traditionally has been very difficult to recycle due to their complex composition and hazardous additive. So the researchers basically were able to repurpose all this e-waste as an alternative to the plastics used in lab cell culture. Okay, so then a recent study basically estimated that there's over 5 million tons of plastic waste generated every year from biomedical research labs. So then if we can repurpose this e-waste, then that will help to reduce the amount of plastic waste generated from biomedical research. And below here, we have another example that involves one of our faculty members, Prof. Paul Liu. So NTU actually has a waste-to-energy facility in Tuas that converts our campus trash into useful resources such as syngas for generating electricity, metal alloys, and construction materials. And the facility can process over 10 tons of waste every day, and I believe it is actively in operations right now. Okay, so then beyond waste recycling, our faculty have also been very active at innovations in the MedTech and Biotech space. And here are a couple of examples. The top one here shows Prof. Chen Peng, his invention of a skin patch that allows anti-obesity drugs to be administered readily, into basically obese patients. Okay, and then each of these skin patch, as you can see in the picture here, is just 1 cm square in size, but it contains lots of microneedles that can directly deliver anti-obesity medication to the fat cells that reside under the skin. Okay, and below here, is some research from Prof. Deng's lab, where they develop a platform technology that encapsulates pancreatic beta cells and enhances survival. And this platform technology can be used for diabetes treatments. And they have also spun out a company called Pharma Therapeutics, which recently clinched second place at an inter-school entrepreneurship 15K competition. So then, if you are a student in our school, you get to participate in some of these frontier research activities, and you can potentially come up with innovative solutions that can be patented or result in spin-off companies. And in our school, we actively support students in pursuing interests, especially those that can potentially create some kind of a society impact. So you can see that we have a makerspace, we have another activity on food waste conversions. We also have a Zymergy guild for fermentations, and we have recently set up a biomaker space as well. Okay, so just to give you a bit more details on some of these student activities. Okay, so then in the biomaker space, basically the facility is equipped with some of the state-of-the-art 3D printers, and students can go in and basically print anything that they want. So last semester I've had some students print a device that can be used to perform diagnostic assays for COVID. Okay, and then the students involved in makerspace also hold workshops such as Arduino workshops and so on, that teach students very useful skills as well. Okay, and this next slide here is on our food waste conversions. So then there is this very interesting insect called the black soldier fly. When these flies are at the larvae stage, they are extremely hungry, and they can chomp up lots of food that is several times their body weight. So then what is realized is that this larvae can be used to convert food waste into fertilizers and animal feeds. Okay, and then besides just helping to upcycle food waste, we can actually also extract useful biomaterials from these little creatures. So if, for example, from the pupa, you can extract chitin, okay, which is actually a very useful biomaterial. Okay, so our students have been actively going around collecting food waste from around campus and feeding them to the larvae. And you can see here that we have constructed a tentage on the balcony of our building to house our friendly larvae for degrading food waste. And we are also starting a new project whereby we want to genetically engineer some of these black soldier flies so that they can live longer, and can basically, we want to enhance their survivability so that they can do a better job at chomping up the food waste. Okay, so then another very popular student activity is our Zymergy guild. So basically is our fermentation club, where students can basically brew anything that they want, from beer to kombucha. They can also make kimchi as well, which I heard is very tasty. And we also have in our school, mid-size 25-liter bioreactors, which the students can use if they wish to try scaling up their concoctions in a bid to see whether they can, potentially commercialize, their products. Okay, so you can see here, some of the students, after brewing, you can basically design your own labels and paste them on the bottles as though you have your own beer product. And we actually hold an annual beer brewing competition where students come together in teams and they basically experiment and try to ferment their own unique beer flavor. And we have for this competition, we try to get also judges from the industry to come and judge as well. And some of them are happy to come to taste all this new beer that is brewed by our students, because they tell me that if they find something that is delicious and they like it, they can potentially try to sell in their pubs as well. So many of our prizes are actually company sponsored because they are interested in this activity in our school. Okay, so then as I mentioned earlier, we have recently set up the biomaker space. Okay, so that's to is a complement to the makerspace, where in the biomaker space, students can genetically engineer different host chassis, ranging from E. coli to different yeast species, or even to microalgae, to produce value-added chemicals, food ingredients, flavors, or anything that the student wish. And even before the formation of the biomaker space, our school has been every year we have been actively taking part in this competition known as İGEM. Okay, so İGEM is a synthetic biology competition which I believe was started around 2004. It has grown tremendously over the years into a massive competition where every year over 300 universities from around the world will take part. And it's basically, the students, each team will embark on some synthetic biology project for about a year. And then at around November or so, all the teams will gather in Boston to present their projects. And then there are prizes to be won as well. So we have, our school has been taking part in this competition since 2015. And then some of the projects that the students have done over the years include engineering Shigella bacteria to produce electricity in a fuel cell, developing better genome engineering tools, and also developing new high throughput sequencing methods, or more recently last year, they also work on new diagnostic assays for COVID. Okay, so this is a very popular competition because not only do the students get to engage in cutting edge synthetic biology research, they also get to fly to Boston and network with many other undergraduate students from around the world. Okay, so besides the activities that I have mentioned, so we have other interesting student activities ongoing as well. One of them is our analytics and data student interest groups. So we all know that data science is growing in importance, and digital literacy is something that all our students need to be equipped with. So basically, these student interest groups have ties up with industry, so that they can work on real world problem statements. And the students also hold workshops such as machine learning workshops, data structure workshops, different programming workshops, so that our student community can pick up useful programming or computational skills. Okay, so besides ANATA, which is short for analytics and data, every year we also try to hold this Chem-E car competitions. Let me try to get to the correct slide. Yep. Okay, so basically we know that the traditional vehicle powered by petrol, right, is not really the way forwards for a sustainable future, right? Because fossil fuels are going to run out, and so of course you see on Singapore roads, the move towards electric vehicles. And then in this competition, students basically design and build vehicles that are powered by chemical reactions. And so they have to perform certain tasks, for example, transport certain cargo across a defined distance, and the vehicle has to stop at a certain spot. So this is a competition where students get to utilize, engineering principles in a real life applications, and you get to build your own car from scratch as well. Okay, so then hope that all these slides give you a good flavor of what student life is like. As we are constantly engaging our industry partners and holding industry visits, inviting alumni to come back to share their experience, so that our students will be up to date with what is happening in the industry. Okay, so for example, here, last month, or actually I think it's 2 months now, I brought some students to visit Insecta, which actually is a kind of like a farm that has black soldier flies for the purpose of, basically converting food waste and to produce animal feed and fertilizers from the bugs. Okay, and then we have visits to different industry, and as you can see here, this is an example of one of our alumni sharing sessions to actively engage and be up to date with industry trends. Okay, so just to end, in our school, we have very active academic support and student care programs. So for example, we have peer tutoring schemes. So in case, some students are weaker in certain areas, they can, turn to peer tutors for help. We also have a pastoral care manager who assists with any potential issues, not just academic related, but it can be, emotional issues or family issues, so on and so forth. So that, we help students to go through and cope better with university education. And with that, I hope to be able to see many of you join our school. And you can check us out on different social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Telegram, and I believe we are also on Twitter. Okay, and I believe that's all the slides that I have, and I'll be happy to take questions with Prof. Raymond.
Thank you, Prof. Zan. So right now we'll be entering our Q&A interaction session. Feel free to ask us any question, and you might even type your questions in the chat box as well. So before we end this session, do download our, before we proceed to the Q&A session, please download our CCEB e-brochure through scanning of the QR codes on the left. Also share with us your feedback regarding this session by completing the survey on the right. I'll leave it for a few seconds. Moreover, after this sharing session, if you wish to connect with our student ambassador or professor, please feel free to connect with us via the QR code shown here. This form is also available via our Linktree website located under our NTU CCEB.official Instagram. Thank you, and we hope to see you in the School of Chemistry, Chemical Engineering, and Biotechnology. So right now, we proceed to the Q&A session.